What's going on, guys? Coming back with another video. This one's going to be a good one. We're going to get really into the weeds of, how I've been able to blow up my account on Instagram. We're at 32,000 followers right now. I think back in December, I was at like 1,000, you know. I got 32,000 followers in the span of 2 months. So what have I been doing to amass this type of following? Like, how do you gain an audience? How do you do these things? Well, we're going to get into that. And it's actually pretty simple. Of course, everybody kind of intrinsically knows this, but what kind of hurts them is they start overthinking it. They start overthinking it. They start like doing the simple things that they know works. They start to question those things and then not do them, which is just like the dumbest thing I could ever think of in my life. Doesn't make any sense, right? It's like if somebody wants to get big, if somebody wants a lot of muscle, they want to be a bodybuilder, what would you do? Just eat a lot of protein and lift all the time. Lift weights and eat protein. Like that's literally what you would do. But when it comes to bodybuilding, there's all these arguments, there's all these debates, there's all these discussions about how you do this, how to get this muscle. Do you lift this? You don't lift this? And it's just like, this is a simple fix. This is a simple deed. This is a simple thing. It's a simple mission. Everything in life is a simple mission. Nothing is really that difficult, you know? Nothing is really that complex. There are complexities in life, but those are when you get deeper into the craft. When you get deeper into the craft, you start to recognize the complexities. You don't just start lifting day one and it's the most complex thing ever. That's when you just literally just lift weight. Literally. Right? So when you want to grow on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, you literally just post. That's literally all you do. You just post. Now, you got to post every day and you got to post multiple times a day. That's what I did, you know. Me though, of course, I'm posting about politics. I'm posting about what's going on in today. Posting about the Somali daycares. I'm posting about Muslims taking over. I'm posting about world Jewry. I'm posting about the big stuff. I'm posting about how socialism is never going to work. I'm posting about how abortion is murder. I'm posting about how women shouldn't be able to vote, things like that. So you know that that's going to get a good amount of, traction. Now, if you don't want to post about those things, I mean, that's fine. You don't want to defend your country. That's cool, I guess. I don't see what you could be doing other than that. But, well, there is other things to post that I also do post as well. Men self-improvement, as far as like things like that. Better diet, how to, raise your testosterone, stuff like that. I mean, I'm all around the board, but what I said previous is pretty much the main stuff I do. So it's a little bit easier for me to blow up because these are things that people they care about. They want to know. They're wonder about it, right? These are dynamic topics. You could get banned, could get shadow banned, could get your account taken away. People are afraid to say it. Things like that. So of course it's gonna get just a little bit more traction, you know? But I could also hop into the politics stage and get no motion at all. You know how I could do that? I could water down my content so much that you wouldn't even be able to tell the stance. You just watered it down so much that it wouldn't offend anybody. It's not strong left or strong right. It's just so watered down to try to appeal to the masses. That's what people try to do when they make that mistake. They try to appeal to everybody, But in result, they appeal to nobody because nobody's stance is just like universal. Everybody is either on this side opposing that side, or they're on that side opposing this side. Nobody is just this universal entity that, like, that's nobody's just natural stance, right? So a lot of people, they lose, they just don't capture the amount of motion that they could have captured by trying to be super duper nuanced and universal. Like, I'm, you know, obviously against Islam. I think it's a fake religion. And, I try to show that to the world, and I try to explain why it's a fake religion, why it's going to hurt America, why it's hurting Western civilization, things like that. And my stance is firm. I'm against it. And I get a lot of Muslims in my comments coming at me, in my messages coming at me, but I get a lot of Christians and a lot of people who just, understand, people with IQ, people with a brain that are like, yeah, of course, people that are having sex with their cousin at 50% rates. Hey, this isn't good for society, you know, just common sense. They're my biggest fans. Now they are invested in me because I'm the voice of their movements. I'm saying what they truly believe. So they're following me on all platforms. They're commenting. They're defending me in the comments. They're liking my videos. They're subscribing. They're talking to me. They're sending me information about better arguments and better things to know. And they're DMing me because I am their representative. That's that stance, right? Now, if I change my stance to do the universal thing people try to do, I would be like, well, Islam is, one religion and Christianity is one religion, and we just all need to unite and we all need to live in peace. And, we got to set our differences aside, and we got to we have things in common, and we got to stick together, and we got to do this. I mean, I would literally have no motion. I would literally get like 2 likes a post. Because who is that? Who is that? Who is the audience for that? Of course, that would be great. Of course, that's great. That's amazing. But that's not going to capture anybody because that's just not a stance. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants to unify. Everybody wants these things. However, there are differences at fault here. There's two powers at fault here, right? So where people are trying to figure out how to navigate the ongoing war. They're not trying to hear these, pseudo self-improvement, pseudo, yeah, everything's gonna be okay and world peace. And that's not a really rigorous statement. That's not really a rigorous post or stance. So yeah, people are just not gonna, you know what I'm saying? People aren't gonna, they don't care, right? It's just like if you did men are superior to women, you're gonna get a crowd, you're gonna get an opposition. You did women are superior to men, you're gonna get a crowd, you're gonna get an opposition, right? You're gonna be able to build an audience, a following, a movement with either of those, just because it's an actual stance. But if you said men and women are, they're equal, and they're equal, and they're just, no stance, like men and women are both great and they're both lovely and they're both this, both that. Well, how about how a man's different? Oh, women could do that too. What about how a woman's different? Oh, men can do that too. And you just try to just not offend anybody, and you just drown yourself in the nuance, and you just silence yourself with the tolerance. You're just muting yourself. You're ripping your throat out with the tolerance and nuance, and you're suffocating your voice behind the political correctness. Now you're nothing. Now you're not a stance. You're not a voice. You're not a stance. You're not a movement. You're nothing. So that's how you're going to be treated. Nobody blows up off of saying men and women are equal. Nobody. That's a just a talking point from the globalist elite that are trying to push something. That's not an actual stance. That's why when people take that stance, it's just like TV show hosts that's been on TV for 30 years. They get their cue cards. It's just like celebrities that have been in Hollywood forever. And yeah, they're just been pushed an agenda. Or idiots that are dumb enough to actually believe celebrities or TV hosts. Those are the only three people. Those are the only three categories. Everybody else has an actual human stance. And those people will be able to get audiences and build movements because they actually have a human, relatable stance. That's why. So yeah, so back to what I'm saying, you gotta be a rigorous, you have to make rigorous content, right? So if you're gonna make content about food and health, it can't just be, hey, here's a well, and this is for me. This is what I personally think. Maybe you can blow up making the most nuanced, political correct slop in the world, but I don't think you're gonna matter. Most people won't. Most people won't actually think that you matter. So it's hard to give this advice without putting in the you know with the insight that I have because it's just too important. So, you know, when it comes to making the content, I mean, if you're going to make health content, you got to also show, hey, this is how you optimize your health. These are the best things to do every day. This is what the government is trying to tell you to do. The government is evil. The government's trying to do, like, you got to have both sides. Because when you have a movement, you got to also have an enemy. You can't just do, hey, you got to be strong. You got to be handsome. You got to do this. You got to say, hey, got to be strong. Got to go to the gym. The government's trying to get you not to. The government's trying to do this. Women are trying to tell you to be soft. Women are trying to. So now you have an enemy. Now you're putting yourself as the protagonist. So you have a real movement here. You're getting people riled up. Now, let's hope you're doing this for the good, the goodness out of your heart. Hopefully this is in a moral way. I don't want somebody to take this and, do something evil with this information. However, this just is the truth about content and how it works, right? You have to create an enemy. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're not actually creating an enemy. Like I said, if you do it in good faith, there just are enemies out there. There just are actual enemies out there. There's just plenty of enemies you could choose from, right? And you could base your content on, hey, here's how to combat these enemies. Here's what these enemies want you to do wrong. Here's how these enemies are trying to get you to, you know, harm yourself or, do wrong. Here's how they're trying to ruin your life. And here's how you beat those enemies, and here's how you succeed in life, and here's how you work hard and, defeat all this propaganda. Right? So that's how you have rigorous content, by actually having a stance, a strong stance, and make it something you believe in. And if you don't believe in anything, just start watching, because there's a lot of people out there actually that don't believe in anything. They don't. They're just like, oh, well, I'll call her they, them if they want. And, oh, you can be gay if you want. Doesn't hurt me. God could be real, couldn't be real. We don't know. Yeah, Trump, I mean, yeah, he got elected. What can we do? It's just a vote. Vote don't really matter. Like nothing. They have no stance. And these type of people, because my cousin, I talk to him all the time. He lives with me. We have discussions all the time, and he's kind of just seeing that his worldview is just nothing. It's no stance. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's just an agnostic nothing. And so I'm asking him, like, well, who do you watch? Like, who do you watch that kind of gives you, your philosophy, your worldview? Like, who do you watch that gives you that insight on how you see things? Because that is how you get your insight, of course, by perceiving other things, watching people, listening to people. That's how you get insight. That's how you get perspective. So I'm like, okay, your perspective is nothing matters. Who do you watch? So he's like, um, 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 well, uh, well, there's this girl that does finance. It's like keeping up with Nicole or something, or financing with Nicole or something. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what is she? What did you learn from her? Like, what is the type of content she does? He's like, well, I learned, just financial tips and, how to, you know, stuff like that. I'm like, oh, what type of tips did you learn? He's like, well, uh, you know, she just makes a lot of stuff, but sometimes she does this stuff. I mean, it's just like, oh, so nothing. So nothing. He's like, oh, well, yeah, I don't really remember, but okay, who else? Oh, well, this is this foot doctor that I watch. He's really good about like feed and how it's important. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, well, feet are important. So what'd you learn? He's like, oh, well, just stuff and about the feed, and it's like, okay, well, who else? Like anybody else? And he's just like, oh, that's really all I know or something, or it's just like, okay, well, you have no perspective, you have no really worldview or stance, and the only places that you can like gather this worldview is a finance content creator girl and a foot doctor. When do you think they're going to start talking about like purpose and life and deeper things like your philosophy on women, men's nature, and things like that? When do you think that they're going to go into that stuff? Of course they're not. Of course they're never going to do that. Of course that's not their content. Right? People just watch slop. They watch slop. You're never going to watch content that's actually meaningful, that actually has a purpose behind it, a call to action, that's actually deep and insightful. Maybe it's philosophy. Maybe you're watching Aristotle or Plato, or you're listening to them, reading their books. You're never gonna like apply yourself that much by absorbing that type of content and then coming back with a worldview that's like, well, I mean, yeah, just anything is anything, and woman or whatever. And men, woman, like, who cares? It's just whatever, same thing. Like, there's no way. There's no way, because you're watching slop. You're watching slop. And that's it. So you got to watch more purposeful content. You got to create your worldview, have a rigorous stance, make rigorous content, and you got to post multiple times a day. I say at least 3 times a day on every platform: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. At least 3x, at least 3 times a day, at least, right? And if you're doing these things, you can gain an audience. I hope you enjoyed the video. Follow, like, subscribe for more. We are, making things that actually matter, videos that are actually thought provoking. There might be some slop here and then, but hey, we try to minimize the slop. We try to reduce the slop because there's so much slop out there. So, support the channel. You know what I'm saying?